Welcome to GM Talks, where today we're gonna look at closed positions. That is position that is not open, that is like a lot of pawns in the center is blocking the play. This can be difficult to play for a lot of players. I, for one, remember when I had like 2300, I was really bad at this, and I decided to try and study it and become better at close positions, and I think I did manage. And there are some key points to consider, and they're not equal. So in this video, you will learn what to look for, which pieces to exchange, when is material important and when it's not important, and the king and how to open files and so on. So we're gonna look at a game that was played, I think today, between Gukesh and Sjugirov in Chennai Masters, and it's a fascinating struggle. It's not error free, but you will learn these key points from this game, I believe. And if you start like becoming a Superman in close position immediately, you shouldn't panic, because it's natural. It is not easy. It takes time. It will slowly get there. Anyway, let's get into the game. Gukesh is white. I don't know why it's not displaying his name. And Sjugirov is black. I believe Sjugirov has moved to Hungary. I think, and we have and by the way, in the old days, games that started with D4 was called the close games. But of course, if you play some random Queen's Gambit accepted, it's not gonna be a close play, and a lot of open games can be very close. For instance, the Chigorian variation of the Rai Lopez. Anyway, this is the most sort of aggressive way for white to play after d4, and black plays the Nimzo Indian, where he pins the knight here on c3, and f3. And by the way, here we see, and this is typical for positional plays. You fight for squares, you fight for space, you fight for activity of the pieces, and so on. And here white plays f3. It's an ugly move, but the point is very clear. White wants to play e4, building a strong center. And by the way, black played this move to take more control over this square. So they are fighting for the center, and black decides to play c5. The main line here is to go d5, which leads to very rich play, and it's very fascinating positions where white has more space, but black has some decent counterattacking possibility. But this was not what he really wanted to do. Gukesh, he just want to transpose, and this variation you can always also get with a3 instead of f3. And here the main move for black is to go d5, and that's a completely different approach than what he is taking in the game. This is where you instead of going for a closed maneuvering position, you strike to open the position, because white has played f3 and a3 and has not developed any pieces, and often when you get the bishop pair, you're behind in development. So the guy with the knight or the girl with the knight would love to start an attack. And this, by the way, this is I think this is the main line actually in this opening. And here white decides not to, because he has a problem with this one. He just decides to hold on to another pawn. Anyway, this is a completely different discussion. Instead of this, Sjugirov played knight c6, going for a positional play. White got to play e4, which was the plan, and d6, and knight e2. And the main feature of the position is that white got the bishop pair. That is, he's got this bishop extra, and if this bishop will become good, then it will spell a lot of trouble for black. This is the typical thing with the bishops. When you have the bishop pair, if one of, especially the one the opponent does not have, if it becomes strong, then you will gun him down with that bishop, and this bishop can have a bright future. For instance, here pinning the knight. On the other hand, White's did have to give something up. He gave up. He got I love when he does that. He got the double pawns here, and notice one thing. And by the way, this is an important rule for double pawns. The further advanced the double pawn is, the weaker it gets. So when you have double pawns, stay the hell back. Keep the pawns close to your base, and they will be much easier to defend. As they sort of roll up the board, they will become weaker. This is I think really clear rule. Anyway, at the moment, White is also sometimes not afraid to sacrifice one of the c-pawns to get activity and an attack against the king. Black's king can be a problem for him in this position. h6, I think the main move here is b6. We're striving for some sort of setup, bishop a5 and bishop a6, and just going for that pawn here. h6 is to avoid the pin. The pin is not such a terrible thing, but in general, Black would like to, and this is the Capablanca way, we talked a lot about that in here on GM Talks, is when you got a white squared bishop, you want to put your pawns on, let me hear it, black, because then you will sort of restrict the opponent's bishop, and your own bishop will have a lot of squares to move to. Queen a5, disturbing the king a little bit. There is a pin here, and the king moves out of the way, and queen goes back. And of course, this was not the best square, but it does not matter really. And d5. So White decides to change the nature of the position and accept that his pawns will be on White. So he's hopeful this will be strong, and he's a little bit afraid that this will be weak. Knight goes in the center, knight goes to d3. This is often a good square. As we know that Black will probably not have this on White for a very long time, then the knight will have some decent squares here on this side. So this square is important in this kind of structure. Okay, so we have a sort of pretty close position with not. Of course, if Black was to take here, it would be semi-open, but he's not going to. So we'll just, and White goes a4. You could, in general, if it was an open game, then you would say a4 is. By the way, I didn't talk about this move, rook a2, but it's often a smart thing. When you have more space and you have a lot of, then you have the chances to shift the rooks. And a4 is, of course, Black's most basic plan is to play b5 or b6, and bishop a6 is also on the cards with the pawn here. And I'm not sure, but anyway, a4 is usually going to come anyway, and by the way, this is a little bit smart. The idea is you cannot take on c4 because after this, White just go queen a2 and is winning material. And rook e8. Queen a2 covering the pawn, queen goes back, bishop develops, knight goes to g6. And well, the thing is, Black is probably a little bit afraid that White suddenly can push the f-pawn, and knight d4 would just be bad. The king would move, and then a3 would come, so he'd start by retreating the knight. By the way, in these kind of structures, the knight is often good here. And e5. And now we have a fully closed position where all these sort of this stuff is blocked here in the center, so nothing really will happen there. When we look at it, we can see that black probably, and this it doesn't look like it at the moment, but he probably has the advantage on the queen side. In the long run, white's pawn over here will be weak, and black will manage to get b5 in, and it's hard to see that white can ever get to the b pawn. So in the long run, white probably black probably have the better chances on king side, queen side, and black, due to the bishop, especially the black square bishop, white probably have more scope on the king side, and the king side a little bit more interesting, because here we have 3 squares and here we only have 2, or rows, or whatever it's called. Anyway, bishop goes here, and knight f5 is what you often do, but it's always tricky if you want to allow this exchange. You have to be very careful that it's good. What you don't want with white is for these 2 knights, if they manage to sort of sit somewhere forever, so you cannot dislodge them with a pawn, you're in trouble in general. So you have to be able to keep your, and this is a very important rule, keep your pawns as flexible as possible. It could be, sometimes it's very good to play g4, and sometimes it is a total disaster, because black will be able to just sit on some squares and you will not be able to move, and you will probably lose. So be very careful how you move forward. And the same with this knight f5. It's a bit tricky, because you are sometimes afraid that you will end up with 2 bad bishops versus 2 nice knights. So and black goes back, and g3, very important move, taking control over these squares, not allowing anything to happen here. White needs to be slow here, but on the other hand, he should have a clear advantage. In the long run, he's probably hoping to play f4 first of all, because that does not give squares away. It can give this square away, but not as much. This is because if he plays d4, then he has to be wary of this square, and moving the h4 pawn forward means that when you play f4, this is important. When you play f4, you might lose this square. So there's a lot to think about. It's not so easy, and black would like to take with the knight here, and black accept that, and probably he should take this one, but of course white should be a little bit better. We see that the 2 bishops are clearly pointing in this direction. The rook will come, and white will probably be able to push everything into trying to attack this guy, even though black, of course, is pretty solid. h5. Now, this move I don't like. I think so far they played very sensible move, but h5 is, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and it's always, and as usual in chess, it always depends. But this is weakening the position, and in general, I was like, don't weaken your position. Just don't move the pawns. Just sit there and wait for some square to arrive where you can put your knights, and then use all your might to get those squares, even if it costs a pawn. Usually it doesn't matter. If you get stable knights on the king side, you're in good shape. And the knight goes back, and suddenly this can be a weakness, right? But black also sometimes can get to play this f5, and he's hoping for that, and white stops it immediately. And white can always stop this, but please notice, something like this you don't want to do, because actually, for instance, in this situation, just as an example, black might probably do something like this, and here you can go knight g6, but he can also go like g5 and say, okay, you get squares, but I get squares, and I'm gonna put my knight here, and I'm gonna put it here, and you're not gonna do anything to me, so I will be better here. And this is a very typical situation in these kind of positions, so be very careful not to allow this. And that's hard, because I know I was 23, I think I was 2400, and this happened to me in a game I lost to a guy who later committed suicide. Anyway, but not because of the game, which he won. Rook f8, queen b1, and black is not apparently not afraid of this pawn going, because then he would just be able to attack the queen. So rook goes back, and this, we saw that before, that it has a very nice free range, and often when white wants to have these rooks trained at the opponent's position, and h4. So this was the point, but and of course somehow, but you risk also, you're just opening a file here, not for yourself but for the opponent, and the pawn can't stay here forever anyway, and if it goes here it will probably be lost at some point. So it's not as nice as it looks. I'm not sure about knight f5. I would probably go here and get the rooks to the file, and then go for something like f4. I think knight f5, but it seems like Gukesh liked this move. Take, and this position is white does have the bishops, but black is not in terrible shape. But a lot depends on this knight. If black managed to get this into the game and get it to a good square where it cannot be attacked by pawns, he's fine. And g4. Of course, white is hoping to just push everything here, right? And the king should go down here, the rooks should go over here, and something like this, and maybe this can be weak, and so on. And black decides, and at some point you might also take this one, rook f1, and probably. Yeah, I think black is he doesn't know what to do here. It's not so easy. Sometimes he can get away with g5, just saying, okay, I'm gonna play g5, and then just hoping nothing bad happens. a3, but it seems like Gukesh is not afraid of that, and rook d8 and a5, and black is basically just waiting for white. White is just waiting for black to do something. He's got the long-term chances here. He's just gonna play the bishop somewhere, and at some point he's gonna threaten this pawn, or threaten g5 and so on, or play f4. And the thing is important to remember is something like this you will always take, and play f4, and this we see that of course the bishops are very strong here, and please don't open this diagonal, so this looks bad, but this is what black was hoping for anyway. Queen e7, and this is another thing with close position. The thing with close position is like it's sort of reversible, which open positions are not, because an open position cannot become a close position because too many pawns have been exchanged. So it's just gonna stay an open position forever. But the close position sometimes can become open, and sometimes and sometimes in maneuvering you have all the time in the world, you can just move around, and other times there is something going on and you can do something immediately, and this is one of those situations. White has a great opportunity in this moment. He could play not this move which he played, but he could play f6, and we see that we have this battery here, and if knight takes, then there's the pin he has played for all these years not to allow, will come here, and white is basically winning this. This is a terrible position. You're threatening this, followed by this, and black is dead. Okay, so but Gukesh didn't see this, so he played rook b2 and bishop e3, and this can be hard because you have this close position and you're all messed up with your plans. I'm gonna move here and here and here, and then you don't see this dam attack, right? So now black is slowly getting into the game, and white decides, okay, I'm gonna go for the pawn on h4. It's a juicy target, and white took pawn, and here I think Gukesh should just take it, or I don't know. He played f6 in this situation, and g6, and then he decided, I'm not gonna give the c pawn away. I'm just gonna keep it, and he plays very slow here. Anyway, but of course this is not as easy. Bishop d7, rook b3, and white is threatening here, so the queen will have to go back, and white gets the h pawn. And of course this is much better. We saw that the knight never really got around to anything. Basically white is hoping to go here and maybe push the pawn, but it takes a lot of time. So this is out in the future. It's not gonna happen immediately, and so on. Or maybe if you get one of those rooks here to this square, that would be nice as well. First of all, he got to cover the pawn. He could also do it with the bishop, and black decides, okay, we can do this, and you could, you could take that one, but you can also keep the bishop pair, and keeping the bishop pair looks like it makes sense. So, and black decides he wants some counterplay. Right, overprotects this pawn, so he's getting the pieces freed up and winning a pawn, and probably black should play bishop c2, and I think black looks like he's almost okay, and sometimes if black could get his rooks down and dominate here, then white would be in trouble, because he's got this threat and mate here sometimes, but as long as black can somehow cover this, he's not in trouble. So looking for activity, and white is looking for, of course, if white could take this one with the rook. By the way, it's starting to be a sort of a more semi-open game now. The center is not as blocked, and the dynamics is playing a part here, and covering here, and king h2, and I think Gukesh is playing a little bit too sort of, I don't really know the idea. Of course, one point is to always have the king on the opposite color of the bishop, because when you have a white squared bishop, you'll just have more checks if it's on white. So it's as simple as that. And queen f2, and this is the little trick, keeping control of the position. You don't want to lose this pawn, and if this, then rook a4, I think, and rook is coming somewhere. Black could probably play queen c2, but then you just take and play rook a7, and how he's ever gonna get his pieces out, I don't know. Or it looks like something like this. I think you take, and then you play rook a7, and these guys cannot move without losing the f-pawn, and the f-pawn will hurt to lose it. Okay, so this was just a line. E4, bishop f4, and probably this was a big problem, and yeah, white just has to be careful that this one is not rook b8. I think you can take it, but he was a little bit afraid, so he just stopped it with bishop b5. Then he played this move, and this was a disaster, because here he does not get the e-file, and now white is winning. And it's easy to play because you just go here, right? And it's gonna be all over, and we're already threatening mate in a few moves. And black resigned. I don't know what he should play. White is both threatening this move, followed by this move, but he's also threatening the check here, and that's not, the king here is safe. So nice game, closed openings, maneuvering. It's not easy. it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not easy. You will make mistakes, and even the best players make mistakes in these kind of games. Anyway, this was DM Talks, and I hope you will have a very nice Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope I will make a video between Christmas and New Year's Eve. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. That would be nice. Thank you for watching. Yeah, did I say subscribe?